Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Our research-backed videos are engaging, easy to follow, and they help ease the daily challenges like agitation and anxiety so that you can focus on connection and joy. Available by subscription on mobile and TV apps, Zinnia makes every day a little bit easier. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
But the idea is that your loved one needs you more than any time in their entire life. So yeah, if there's a little resentment, a little something, whether it's a spouse or a parent, get through it. I mean, go to a therapist if you need to, kind of work through it and put it to the side, and be a loving adult. And because realize that if that little resentment takes over and prevents you from taking care of your loved one, then they don't have a good, successful, happy, long life, you're going to regret that at some point. You will, because I know people that have done that, and they do. They say, "Oh, I wish I would have spent more time with my mother, father, spouse," and they feel bad about it after the fact. So avoid that and just figure out how to overcome that little resentment if something's bothering you about your loved one. So.
Well, and I think it's a good learning opportunity of changing patterns, because this might have been a history that they grew up where their parents weren't loving, and that's just kind of how they dealt with you, or, it could be, alcohol or drugs or all kinds of different things. I mean, people have all different types of issues. But to be able to change that pattern, because I've had people step into those roles, and it was difficult for sure. Yeah. But they healed their relationship with their loved one, before they passed. They actually heard a thank you or gratitude that they never heard all of their childhood, or adulthood. And all of a sudden there was this appreciation. And that's, to me, huge, not only for yourself, but for them as well. Totally. And anyone else watching. I know I'm caring right now for my ex-husband's wife, and because he passed away a year ago, and people go, "Oh, why would you do that?" And I'm like, why wouldn't I do that? I mean, she needs help, she needs care. Why would I just because she was the next one to marry my ex-husband, who I've been divorced from, for ages? Why would that make a difference? And I hear that from doctors and nurses and friends, or just people that hear her story. They're just, well, gosh, I don't think I'd ever consider that. And I'm like, what if you were her? Right,
totally. And there may be nobody else to play that role. And so, and it also, if you think about, I mean, not everybody has this belief, but if I think about the journey called life, I mean, the goal is to continue to get to be a better person, a better version of yourself. And when you step into some of these roles like you are with your ex's wife, that's making you a better version of yourself, because you're stepping out of your own ego and your own whatever to be a better person to help somebody. So.
And I'm learning more, because her journey is very different from my mom's and from my aunt's, and And I'm it's showing me that healthcare hasn't changed that much, and in some ways has pulled back from the care my mom received in some ways. So it's opened my eyes, and it's made me, I think, a better advocate overall, not only for her, but just for others, in terms of seeing the realities that people, have to go through with this disease. And I'm hoping that it sets a good example for my grandchildren. My daughter and her husband are right there with me. We kind of are caring for her. And is it tough sometimes to squeeze in some of the stuff we have to do, like getting the house sold and, ready to sell? Yeah. But you know what? If it wasn't her, there would be something else in our lives challenging us that's a little tough that we got to squeeze in to the day to day, because that's just how life is.
That's a perfect, you're at the right mindset. It's like, okay, yeah, is it hard? Sure, life is hard, but it's also rewarding, and you get to feel good about yourself. You get to help somebody else and see them flourish. I mean, it's a gift. We don't think of it that way oftentimes, but it is a gift.
Yeah. Well, even, with her, she'll call me sometimes late at night, and, she's looking for Tom, and I'll have to, at nighttime, we have to tell her that he's passed because we want to get her to sleep and stuff. And she will say, "Oh, no one tells me the truth, and my mind just can't hold it." And I said, "Oh, honey, it's because you're grieving, and it's not something you want to accept, but it's okay, and we've got you." And she just is so grateful. I mean, she's just so grateful that we're there to help her. And it calms her down. And not everyone can you tell them someone's passed. They can loop and get more anxious and stuff. So you have to read your own person on what's what. But you can just hear it in her voice, the relief, and she'll say, I can go to sleep now, thank you. Because she was so filled with worry. And it's like, okay, that was a 5 or 10 minute conversation. Really, is that going to kill me to take that call?
Right.
It's just really
in that your case, you're able to she's able to show gratitude. But when I lead support groups, it's often the case that people feel like, oh, my husband or my wife or mother, father, they don't thank me for all this stuff that I'm doing because they have Alzheimer's. They don't, but they appreciate what you're doing. They just may not be able to express it. Like my mom lost her speech. It was a very first symptom, but she was there, and I knew when she was happy. I knew when she was grateful. You could just see it in her face and her attitude, even though the words aren't there. And your loved one appreciates you even if they don't articulate it. So.
Oh, I agree. And I think we have to retrain people to look at our multisensory connections. So, and sometimes maybe it's us just slowing down to sit next to them on the couch and hold their hand, and that you can feel that little squeeze, from them, or you can see the glint in the eye, or you can hear the soft sigh, without any words being spoken. It's just very simple.
It's remarkable. Yeah, no, it's. I mean, a couple of quick examples. My mom loved, music, and even though she couldn't sing or talk, when when I or my caregivers would play, the old tunes from the '50s that she loved when she was growing up, you could just see her smile, and she was like dancing and shaking and stuff, and she couldn't sing, but you knew she was happy, and I remember one of our caregivers was very. They all really had a good, strong faith, which was interesting. But one of them was loved to pray with my mom, and my mom couldn't, say the prayers back, but you could just tell she was so happy and smiling. She knew that there was a blessing and that there were prayers, and she was just, happy. And you can kind of see that even if they can't articulate that. So.
Well, yeah, and just because they can't participate back doesn't mean they can't understand that. And I think the thing with music that people overlook is, again, your mom didn't have the words. Mine didn't at the end all the time either. She would know part of them, but you'd see the hands going and the body moving and the smiles and the giggles and things like that. And then she'd go to sleep, and then she'd wake back up and kind of chime back in again. And but they can hear everything. And to me, that's a really important thing for people to understand, because I think a lot of times they think if they can't speak, they can't communicate, they're not taking everything in. They are taking everything in. So if we're talking derogatory, or even if we're on the phone and we're whining that we're having to care for somebody or do something, they're hearing all that. How would that make you feel?
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Totally. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's so funny because in my book I have different things about, like, there's a little section that calls when to immediately send a caregiver home, like when to fire a caregiver. There's a couple of experiences that we had where I had to basically just go home, But one of them was my mom was at nighttime. This caregiver, I had for new caregivers at the night shift, I had a little camera to kind of watch what was going on, just until I was comfortable, and then I wouldn't use it. But this one woman, her first shift, my mom was trying to have fun with her at night and want to like play a game, or you could just tell. And she was like totally ignoring her. And she was like, playing on her phone or whatever she was doing, games or who knows what, which is very common these days that caregivers like, okay, I'm going to make sure they're safe, but, my job isn't really to entertain them. But my caregivers, that was their job. And so, I found out the next morning, I said, no, don't come back. So it's like, you can't ignore somebody just because they can't talk.
Yeah.
Fun with them and enjoy their company and make them feel happy and make them laugh, and that's the creativity that I expected of our caregivers.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And sometimes people don't want to do the get out of here thing, because it's like, oh, they don't want to go through the process again of trying to find somebody, or now I have a gap, and so now it's I'm it. And so it's kind of like a corporation with a toxic employee that has everyone else scrambling, but the toxic employee stands strong, in the in the bullpen, and you're losing other good people because it's not being addressed, because that's going to be a tough one to get rid of, and we don't want to get sued or whatever it might be. But I think it's good to address things up front and be honest. And I'm sure
I was always really clear with my expectations of caregivers or anybody that touched my mom. It's like, okay, your job is, number one is safety. That's job one. Number two is you've got to keep her entertained, make her laugh, have fun, show a lot of love, touching, caring. And I found these amazing caregivers that stayed with me. There was the agency paid them whatever they paid them, normal competitive rates, but they never left. I had these 5 caregivers for the last 7 years of my mom's life when she needed full-time care, and they'd never left. Not because we didn't pay them anymore, but because they're happy and they knew the mission. They knew the mission was my mission, and I treated them like gold, even though they were paid whatever the agency paid them. But it's all about finding the right people, and a lot of people, I have an agency I work with. I had 5 agencies I work with because there's a simple concept called talent pool. If you have more people to choose from, you can find better people. And so it's funny because you may have audience that are, care homes or whatever home agencies, but they're used to just like sending people. It's like, okay, I will send somebody over. I said, no. I'm going to interview them at a Starbucks first, and if I like them, they'll get a trial shift. So I interview like lots of people, and in my book, I have an interview protocol, like how do you interview a caregiver, what questions to ask, what answers you're looking for. And so I would interview these folks and then give them a trial shift. If I liked them, I'd give them another shift, and then I'd say, okay, well, you're in, or you're not. So,
Oh, I would imagine that interview protocol will be really helpful because so many people, and I would imagine that that goes, and again, this is a step that I think a lot of people don't want to deal with. That's something that should be used for family caregivers and friends as well, so that they know the mission
totally.
of what's what. And sometimes I think we want to skirt around that, but they want to know what is the job. And I think your caregivers probably stayed because they actually enjoyed their job.
Yeah.
They got to participate. They actually had a relationship with their job. It wasn't just about tasks and a paycheck. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have in care right now is everyone's focused on just tasks and a paycheck. And it's not about building relationships. It's not about building a team. It's not about really giving people creative rights,
Totally.
to do good things.
Yeah. No, you're spot on, because it's so funny, because if a caregiver had a really creative, good idea, I would tell them, I'd say, I'm going to share this with the rest of the team. And you can see them beam, because like, oh, my idea is good enough to tell everybody about it. So they would feel good about that.
Yeah.
A little like that. And my sister and I would celebrate their birthdays or something was going on in their family. And so they got to be part of the family. And that helped them feel like they wanted to stay. And it's funny because my sister and I, even though it's been 5 years since my mom's passed, we're still friends with all these caregivers. We still have birthdays together, and because they're part of the family now. And that's special. And that makes the job less of a tasky thing and more of a connection with your loved one that needs that connection. So
yeah, well, and I think that's so lacking out there now in society and in commercial life, with hires. And I mean, you have people going in with exit plans before they even start, and I just kind of go, really? Gosh, I guess I'm dating myself, being the age I am, but it was like, when I got a job, I was not thinking about what my next job was going to be or how long I was going to stay. That never occurred to me at all.
Yeah. And I learned some things in my world at Taco Bell. One of them was be super flexible on scheduling, because hourly people, they have a life too. And so figure out how to give them the absolute wonderful schedule that they need and be flexible. And so it was funny because the team got so close, the caregivers got so close with each other. After a while, I didn't even have to manage it. They would just like call each other and say, well, I got a conflict. I got to take my daughter here. Would you cover for me? And so they would show up and I'd say, oh, sure, I'm covering for such and such. I said, great. So, because it's like so organic, because they all felt so good about their work. So that's really, really rare, but really important. And I found it pretty doable, but you just have to think of it that way, so.
Well, yeah, it really is. You're building a family or team within, and that is one of the things that I hear administrators talk about all the time, is that no one wants to be responsible for filling their own shift, and when I was younger, that you just did that. I mean, that wasn't even a question. This is your shift, so you find somebody. And the manager didn't have to. We just had to inform them of that. But when there's open communication and it's a whole different world. It just makes everyone's life easier.
Earlier, Laura, you mentioned earlier about doctors. That's the other thing. In the book, I talk a lot about how do you lead doctors. We know doctors do not like to be led. they think they lead you. You don't lead them, but you do need to lead them. And so I have a number of tools in the book about that. One of them is, and I have a long list of questions to ask a doctor if your loved one has some form of dementia. And how other areas of medicine are impacted by dementia, and what questions to use. And so a lot of doctors we know, not everybody. I mean, there's some amazingly great doctors, but some doctors I call speedsters. They like to just like run in and run out because they make more money that way. In my book I talk about how do you slow down the speedster. So one way is through these questions, and some doctors, are happy to answer them, but I always get a list of questions, and you can draw some of those in my book, and then make a copy of it, hand the doctor the list, and say, in this appointment, I want these questions answered, please. And some of them will go through them and work through. Others will ignore you. And so I only had to do this twice, but if a doctor doesn't want to answer your questions and still wants to be a speedster, what you do is you slowly step in front of the door. And so your physical presence in the doorway, is enough of a subliminal message to slow the guy down. So, and it does work because, I can't run out the door. He's standing right there. So there's a lot of little fun tips like that in the book about how do you lead doctors who don't like to be led, basically.
Yeah, I found for my journey, I became really good friends with the nurses.
Sure,
and would make sure that they got what I needed ahead of time via an email. And so they would put it on top, so it didn't get lost in the file for the doctor. And then when I got there, I would remind them. And I would also remind them of, don't say this came from me. Bring this up in general terms. Like if you're talking about someone can't drive anymore, you don't want them going home blaming the care partner, because that's gonna harm their relationship in terms of caring. But they'll be listened to because they're the doctor, and the expert and stuff. But even things so basic as that, or I've had somebody sent me, I'll never forget this one. They sent me a video of some test results. And the doctor is, showing the brain and the plaque. And he's got literally, it's a black and white picture. And then he has a pencil fine red arrow that you can barely see. And it's just flying all over. And it's like, you don't know if you're looking at this screen or this screen, but he's so used to looking at it. And it's like, no, you need a big, not a red one, because not everyone can see red, maybe yellow, white, I don't care what it is. And you got to slow down and you got to tell them where you're at, or the terms that they use. They're so used to talking to other medical professionals that know these terms, and families don't. And there's so much guidance that the doctors need in terms of what is really helpful once they get home. Because, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but I hear this from my support groups all the time. We don't really care what the diagnosis says anymore. We need to know, how do we manage this as a family? And the doctors don't have a clue on where they can find support for that. And I see that as one of the very biggest needs out there.
I think you're spot on. It's interesting. The other thing too is, as an HR executive, I learned, and we forget this sometimes. I mean, whether it's caregivers or doctors, people come in all forms. I mean, there are poor doctors, there are average doctors, there are good doctors, and then I call them gurus. These are like extraordinary doctors that lead in their field, do research, grants, presentations, etc.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
So the idea is, don't accept, you definitely don't get any poor or average doctors. Find the best doctors. In some cases, you need a guru. Because with Alzheimer's patients, you can't go to 10 different doctors to get a diagnosis or a treatment plan. If you got something that's kind of hard to deal with, find a guru. And they're out there. I mean, they often associated with teaching hospitals, universities, but they're not hard to find. Just figure out if they're leading their field, if they give speeches, if they've written about it, they get grants. And then all these leaders, these gurus, see patients. They all do clinical work and do research. And find these guys because it's going to make your job a lot easier. And the chances are that their solution is going to be less invasive because they're more creative and they've got state-of-the-art ideas. And so we forget that. Sometimes we assume, okay, the doctor's got a license up there, they're all the same. They're not. They're not at all. And in any other profession, your caregivers are not going to all be the same, which sometimes we assume a caregiver is a caregiver. No, there's good ones, great ones, average ones, poor ones. You just have to be tuned into that and find the best team you can for your loved one. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and a lot of times people say, well, I can't get in. Well, you probably can't get into a poor one either nowadays, the way the system is so backlogged. So if you have to wait a little bit longer for someone who knows what they're doing, it outweighs things.
Totally.
Or go to one that's not highest on your list, and then ask for a referral, and maneuver that way.
Interesting. Sometimes we assume that they're not available, these gurus. I found that people assume that, and so they're actually. My mom had two times in her life, once before she had Alzheimer's, and then once after she had Alzheimer's, that she had a condition that was really, really hard to diagnose and treat. And I went to lots of doctors, and then I realized that no, I need a guru, which is why I put that in the book. And in both cases, we found gurus very easily when I had that mindset to find these researchers, these leaders in the field. And they made an appointment with it faster than a regular doctor because people assumed that they weren't seeing patients, but they were. And both cases, they treated my mom's condition. They knew what it was, they figured it out, and the solution was less invasive, where some of the average doctors wanted to do some big, crazy surgery, and the guru said, no, that would be dumb. This is a less invasive way to treat it. And I talk about those cases in my book because it's like, okay, don't do anything that's invasive and surgery when you don't need to. And nowadays, there's a lot of creative doctors that can come up with things that are much easier, much better, and all around. So,
well, and I think if you have that positive mindset that you're going to find somebody, that helps too, versus going in that, oh, I'm never going to get in, or I'm never going to find anybody. And, you're taking in the average pipeline of caregiving in there that tends to be sometimes more negative than positive with people. Now, I know we need to wrap up here, so I just have a couple more questions for you. What's your biggest takeaway you want our audience to walk away with?
This is really important because, and I see this all the time leading these support groups, because there's no cure for Alzheimer's, it's easy to get in the victim mode and say, okay, I can't really do much. I'm just going to do the bare minimum. But the truth is, I want people to walk away with the idea that there's hope. And the hope is this idea that you can do many, many, many small things that make a huge difference for your loved ones' health, longevity, and happiness. And don't get caught up in this idea that, okay, there's no cure, so it doesn't matter what I do. No, what you do makes a big difference for your loved one's health, longevity, happiness, and your own peace of mind and your own positivity as a loved one. And have that hope and have that willingness to take the actions necessary, and don't get lost in this idea, oh, there's no cure for Alzheimer's, and so life is horrible, I'm a victim, doesn't matter what I do because nothing's going to change. No, have hope, have a plan, and my book gives you kind of a guideline on how to both have the mindset and the plan to make a big difference. And that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to give people hope. So,
yeah, I think that's a critical key piece. There's so many cool things that people are doing that nobody really knows about because we don't have a good way to connect people, and that's, well, we talked about this earlier. That's one of the reasons I created Dementia Map. And, it has a thimbleful compared to what's actually all out there, yes. But there's just amazing people who have who have shared their stories and what they've learned, like you, that are it's changing people's lives and how they frame things. And hopefully your book will also change, our medical system in terms of how they look at things too, and making a caregiver be more credible, because that's been caregivers and the patients have been dismissed for a long, long time in that industry. And so looking at them as a leader and as a doctor or nurse or practitioner, going, I can learn from them. This isn't just a one-way conversation, which is really kind of the same problem caregivers have with the person with dementia. Like, I can still learn from them, no matter what the situation is. Now, you're still involved with, support groups and helping families with disease. A lot of people step out of the journey, once their loved one passes. Why is it so important for you to stick around and continue walking alongside them?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, it's funny because my boss said, because when I left, I wasn't even early retirement eligible to take care of my mom. So my boss said, well, you're still pretty young. You want to come back to work? I said, no. My mission now is to help people. But the why is interesting. I think one is, I don't know, I felt so good when my mom was thriving, and I want other people to feel that benefit, because I've heard nothing but just horror of people who are just so desperate being a caregiver. So I want to give people that hope, that positivity, because I feel good, when I see that happening. And the other, it's a little bit of a legacy to my mom, who I still miss in some ways. I do a lot of things that are helping others to help me have the right mindset about the grief that I feel with my mom. And so it's a kind of a testament to her still, the work I'm doing, and it helps me stay focused on what's important. So
caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Yeah, I can totally I can totally get where you're coming from there, because I know with my work too, 30-year journey with her, it's like, I don't want this to be all for nothing, because I did learn a lot, and I still have way more to learn, and I want to be able to help. And you see that huge gap, and you see and you feel other people's grief. And, gosh, if there's a way to be able to assist them to not feel the pain or the loss, and to help build skill sets, and most importantly, give them hope that they're still in relationship with a person, no matter, if it's dementia or another chronic illness or whatever. Don't let the disease take away a relationship. I mean, to me, that is one of the worst things we can do. You just holding up the white flag and saying it's over. And it's like, it's not over, and if you stay with the journey long enough, you will see those moments of clarity, and you'll see those signs that you were missing, that they're just communicating to you in different ways.
No, you said, I think, I can't remember if it was this podcast or another one of yours I listened to, the person is still there. Though they're different and they've lost memory, you see the light and the hope in that person, and the respect and love you have has to be sustained and help that person, because they're still the same person, even though they're a little different. They're the same. Their heart and soul are the same. And so do what you can to help them. So that's my belief.
Well, and we've all changed too. lot of times we look at someone who's ill as, oh, they're the ones that's changed. Well, we've changed too.
Definitely.
What our priorities are in life, and this isn't a one-sided thing. It's and I think it's a societal shift that really has to come into play. And I just keep seeing more and more people kind of join this energy and this movement of we can care a lot better than what we've been
Yes.
doing, and we can get more creative. And I think when people find, like you said, even like a caregiver, like, oh, this really worked well, I'm going to share it. There's such power in sharing those moments of joy, those things that work, and they might not work every time, but again, it's building that toolkit that is so critically important to people.
Yes.
And makes the job easier. So thank you so much, Mark, for being with us. I want to make sure that our audience gets your contact information. So your website is boldcareleader.com. And your book is titled Breakthrough Alzheimer's Care, and it can be found on Amazon. You are also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram as Bold Care Leader. I can't say how grateful I am to have you on, and just changing that terminology from caregiver to care leader to the bold care leader is so powerful in terms of how someone's going to show up. And it gives them that sense of control back too, that I think is so lost in the journey. People, feel hopeless because they don't feel like they're in control. But when you're the leader, you are in control. You can make choices, and you can steer the ship differently if that's the way you feel it needs to go.
Exactly. Well, Lori, it's such a pleasure to be on your show, and you've done so many wonderful things for the community, and I know that your mission is terrific too. And so I'm so happy to get to know you better and to be on your show, and all your listeners, I'm sure, are benefiting from all your great works. Thank you, Lori.
Well, thank you. To our listeners, I always want you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share. You never know who's in your sphere of influence. I don't care if it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. There are people that need to hear Mark's message, which is absolutely, I think, will be life-changing for so many people, and to give them a different frame to put this caring journey on. So please pass it on. It takes you seconds, costs you no money. Can't ask for better than that. Go purchase his book. Feel free to check out all of Alzheimer's Speaks free resources as well, and dementiamap.com too. So until next time, everyone, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors, from fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.